I owe you some updates on the car. So as you can see, I've done some upgrades on my whole setup with the extender battery, and I'd like to walk you through everything that I've done and also share with you some experiences with the things that went right and the things that went wrong, and of course how much range I'm actually getting lately. So first of all, I made a cover. It's just some MDF, very cheap wood, covered with some spare carpet. Because the extender battery isn't quite the full depth of the cargo area, I could leave like a little cubby here, which is where we put our charging lead. And in this case, there's a little PCB here. So this PCB is the relay control. It takes the car input, so this is the 12-volt battery from the car, the relay signals, and the EV CAN bus, and it uses the information from the relay signals and the CAN bus to switch the actual relays which are underneath this carpeting. So additionally, it reads the EV CAN bus and it spits out all the CAN messages on this serial port. And originally I designed this board to also interface a bunch of little BMS boards, 15 cell BMS boards via these serial ports. That plan turned out not to be quite necessary because there is already a BMS on these modules. But when I was designing this board, I was still assuming that I would make a giant pack out of 18650s. Now, one of the major issues that this board alleviated was a very nasty squeaking or beeping noise while driving. So as it turns out, the motor inverter, when it's active, not even when it's driving the motor, just when it's active, puts a high frequency, something like 10 kilohertz or 12 kilohertz beep on the 12-volt line. So what I was doing, I was just directly running a MOSFET driver on the 12-volt line and driving those relays. And so what happened is that high beep that coupled into the relay coils, and they started to whine at the same frequency, and they kind of amplified that noise. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. If you ever want to do this mod, don't run the relay drivers directly off the 12 volts. So what this relay driver does to alleviate that is it engages the relays at 12 volts. And then after a second or so, it drops them down to 5 volts, which there's a little regulator on the board that makes 5 volts. This does two things. Obviously, it removes the beep, and also it makes the power consumption of the relays much, much lower. They consume about 400 milliamps a piece at 12 volts, and only about 100 milliamps at 5 volts. So that's a total of half a watt or 1 watt total dissipation for the two relays instead of close to 10 watts. And now we get to the first aero mods. So did they work? Did I actually get extra range from putting in an air dam, so this piece of styrofoam here, and removing the antenna? And the short answer is no, I don't think so. I don't think it made any difference, honestly. There are a couple of confounding factors. I did actually gain a lot of range in the past couple of weeks. But most of that is, I think, due to the weather changing. It went from near freezing at the end of March to like 20 degrees centigrade, which is pretty warm, over the past weekend. And that alone improved my range by at least 10%, maybe 15%. So, and as for the antenna delete, unfortunately, I did want to get rid of the nub, but I have to get off the entire headliner in the car, and that is just... I'm pretty sure I'll damage it when I do that. So unless anybody else has like good experiences with getting off the headliner and can give me some pointers, I don't think I'm gonna do that. The nub will probably stay. It's horrible aerodynamically, but yeah, whatever. So another thing I did to improve my range, and I think it's effective, is I changed the tires. I got the tires changed. Obviously, I couldn't do this myself because these are alloy wheels, have to be balanced, and I just don't have the tools. But aside from that, these are Bridgestone Turanza TW1 91Qs. The European Union requires all tires to have efficiency and noise tests. These are supposed to be most efficient 205 millimeter tires, and so far they seem to actually stack up to that promise. I used to have the stock Bridgestone Ecopias on the rear and Bridgestone Turanza high-speed tires on the front, and those were pretty noisy, and I got really bad mileage out of them. Has to be said, these tires, they're pumped up to 3.5 bars. That is 51 psi for US viewers. That is a ridiculously high pressure, and yes, they are rated to that pressure. I think that's the biggest difference, honestly. It's not really the rest of the tire that's so special. It's just they can be pumped up to a higher pressure. So here's the energy consumption screen in the Leaf, and pretty much every full charge we reset this. So every one of these bars represents a full charge. Well, this here is us driving, or actually me driving like an idiot, to try to empty the battery as quickly as possible. We did about 200 watt hours per kilometer. And right, this last bar as well as this one, that's with the new tires. And you can see it's not just a fluke. It really seems like these last two intervals we've had our best efficiency yet, about 125 watt hours per kilometer. While before we were averaging about 150, 155 watt hours per kilometer. So that's, it's more than 10% difference. It's like 15% difference. Of course, that does include the temperature advantage, and that is significant. But still, I think the tires do matter. Even right now, the temperatures have gone down to about 10 degrees, and it's still at the same efficiency. So I'm pretty confident that these tires have helped. So what's the range I got out of it? Well, so in the last few charges, we can easily exceed 200 kilometers, essentially. I think the range is roughly 210, 220 kilometers. On the very last one, if we extrapolate that 125 watt hours per kilometer, we should be able, with about 32 kilowatt hours of battery capacity of the main battery plus the extender, we should be able to get very close to 250 kilometers of actual range. And that includes highway driving. And of course, this is significantly more than the 170-ish that I got out of the first range test. And of course that is because I was purposely driving very quickly, braking a lot, just not driving efficiently. Right now we're driving it as if we are driving it normally, and it is significantly better. As I said, 200 kilometers, which is about the size of the Netherlands, so that's as much range as we'll ever need. So that's it for all the things that I've done since the last video. But of course, that's not all I will be doing with the car. So right now, I'm going to take you through a list of a couple of things that I have started doing, as well as some more aspirational goals. So things that I'd like to do with the car. Not sure when, but they're probably going to be done in the next year or so. So the first thing is I would like to skirt the rear wheels. So that means putting something over the rear wheels so that air coming this way isn't perturbed by the wheels. It's especially it's very easy to do on the rear wheels because they're obviously fixed. The only downside is that because the bottom of the car is curved, it's very hard to extend the curve past this point roughly. So it will be half a skirt, but gonna try that. That should be an aero mod that has a significant impact, has 5 to 7% aerodynamic gain. The second thing, of course, is that right now the car says it can only drive another 106 kilometers, even though I've only driven 30 kilometers. This is because the display in the car really only knows that there is a main battery, and it's completely ignorant of the secondary battery. So the only way to really fix this is to make a little piece of electronics that intercepts these messages from the main battery that say how much charge is still left in that battery, and add to it messages from the extender battery that say how much energy is in there. This orange UTP cable runs all the way to the extender battery and connects to all the communication ports on the batteries. That was a lot of work, actually. And that forms 3 CAN buses. So this little board then reads the information from those CAN buses, interprets it, and shows me the voltages of all the cells in the pack. So I can cycle through all the voltages and yeah, pretty much see how full every cell in the pack is, and can instruct it to balance and that kind of stuff. So this allows me to manage the charge and the health of the extender. Now additionally, this also shows amps, and there is a current sensor on my cabling. Unfortunately, because of the cover, I cannot show you that current sensor, but it looks roughly like this. In fact, I got a couple of these to play with. These are CAN bus mounted current sensors. Those in the know will know that that is pretty special, actually. This current information combined with the voltage information will give me enough measurements to calculate how full the extender battery is, and I will just send those messages on EVCAN. Hopefully, if everything goes well, that will allow the display to show the actual remaining range instead of a much lower range. Now I hope it goes without saying that that is a lot of work, and it will probably take me a month or more to even get close to getting this to work. So now additionally, I do have a couple more aspirational goals with this car, and this really plays into my whole philosophy about cars, which I'm sure I'll make videos about, which is that it's just a shame that you buy like a big hunk of metal, very intricate, very high-tech piece of equipment, and then 5 years later it's obsolete. And this car, it's already 7 years old. I do fully intend to drive it another 10 years. And in that time, it just feels like, why don't they put any like meaningful upgrades out for these cars? Why can I not get adaptive cruise control? Why can I not get 360-degree cameras? And all these new features that I would really like on my car. I have to buy like an entire new car for some reason, even though those things are like software features and like tiny sensors that you should be able to just add to your car. So at least in the next year or so, I do intend to put in a 360-degree camera, and I want to put a little rangefinder on it to try and make something that resembles adaptive cruise control. The last thing, I'm not sure how far I can get into that, because that part of the canvas has not been reverse engineered by other people yet, the cruise control stuff. But maybe I can get it to work. The 360-degree camera, that at least should work. Now, of course, with that 360-degree camera also comes, well, where do I display this? And I fully intend to remove the current car computer, or yeah, the current display thingy, and replace it with like a proper Linux computer that can do everything I want and isn't slow as hell and has like old maps. Like, why don't they just put out free new maps? I don't get it. Cars are really stupid. And of course, another big aspirational goal for the next year or so is I want other people to do this. It is actually really simple. It only took about a weekend of work to get the extender battery in. I kind of want to sell upgrade kits and make some electronics that other people can do that too. Make like a detailed tutorial and sell all the electronics necessary, like the main battery capacity spoofer thingy. Just sell those kinds of things so people can extend their lease range and make it a useful car. Because honestly, the way I bought it used, the car only went like 50 miles, like 70 kilometers, before you really had to start thinking about charging. And now you can go 200 kilometers and you can pretty much do anything that a normal car can, instead of being this like very limiting experience. So I think this car, because the rest of the car is fine. It's a nice car. It's doing all the things a car should do, but it's just this stupid battery that's limiting it, and there's no reason for it. You can just extend it. So yeah, hopefully next time I will either do an aero mod or show you some progress with the readout of the batteries and that kind of stuff. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video.